Hello everyone, welcome to Proof of Concept channel. As part of our previous video, we had seen the load testing using Locust. We know how to configure the configuration file and adding the load test cases, and through the UI we did a load test cases the last video. As part of this video, we are going to see how to do the load testing with the headless execution, also like adding the weight. So we suppose if we have like multiple test cases, how do we give the weight to particular test case and give the less weight to the other test cases. Also adding the tags, suppose if we have smoke test cases and then regression test cases or thin line regression test cases, how do we execute, how do we control these test cases in between, so only executing the smoke test cases or executing only the regression test cases. Also how to exclude the tags. Similarly, how to validate the response. Suppose you are getting the load test cases output, how to validate whether are you getting the correct response, whether you are getting the success or you are getting 200 response or not. Those kind of validation we are going to see as part of this video. So the first step is headless executions. So earlier we seen how to execute from the UI. So we opened the UI and then executed our load test cases. But here without the UI, how do we execute that load test cases? So let me quickly show you how we need to do that, because this will be very helpful when you integrate with the Jenkins or any CI/CD pipeline. We will not get that UI to execute our load test cases. We have to go with the headless mode. So let's start the headless execution. So before that, as we seen earlier, we have these three APIs to perform this load testing. So the first API is just returning the hello world, the simple one, and the next one also very small one. So this is returning the current time and date, the date and time details, and this is the get customer details, just to provide the name and age and sex details. So these are all the small sample APIs that we have. We are going to perform the load testing on these APIs. Let me quickly run these APIs. Okay, so these APIs are currently running. Let's go to our Locust and perform the headless automation. So we are in our Locust file. So we know that already we need this client config and the Locust file. So the config file for the headless execution, so you have to just give, instead of headless false, you need to give true. So when you give true, this will not provide us any UI to execute our load test cases. We have to execute our load test cases using the command line. Let me go and grab the command and execute. So now we have python -m locust --config client.configs. This command, if you execute, this will execute our test cases in the command line. So when you see the locust file, we have these three test cases right now: API hello world, and then API get my time, and get customer details. These three are very simple test cases we have right now. Let me execute. Now quickly, we can execute these test cases. We have this command python -m locust -config client.config. So now three of our test cases, load test cases, needs to execute. Let me quickly run this. So now if you see, it started. The load testing has been started. So we can see here what test cases are executed. It's calling these methods right now: get customer details, get my time, and the hello world as well. So this is completely in through the command lines, because we don't have any UI right now, because we given that headless equal to true. So this will not provide any UI to execute. This will execute for a minute, because we given 1 minute in the configuration file. It's completed right now. So if you see, so we have these three methods: customer details, hello world, get my time. So we can see total number of requests and how many requests is been executed for every method. So all these details we can easily see here. So especially if you go to the reports, we could see the complete report of here. So my report will be available under this folder, reports folder. So you can just open this. Yeah, in this report, if you see, so the total number of requests 19, and every method called 5, 4, and then 10, and we can see the response statistics as well. The total request per second, those details we can easily see here, and the response time. So we can see the response time also from here, and the number of users want. So this is as part of the configurations. So if you see here the 100 percentage, so every methods invoked equally from here. Yeah, this is our HTML report. Similarly, we have the log file generated in the log file folder. So we can see that that also. We can see if in case any errors, we could be able to see from here. But right now we don't have any errors, but you can see what are all the methods executed from here. This configuration I already explained. So this is the log file configurations, and this is the HTML report configuration. We need to specify where our log file as well as the HTML report needs to be archived. So this is where when we provide the headless equal to true. So when we provide headless equal to false, we already seen in our previous video, we have the UI exposed. Through that we can perform the load test cases. But when we provide headless equal to true, we can execute our test cases through the command line. So the next step will be adding a higher weights. So we are going to see how do we add a weight for the particular test cases so that the particular test case will execute more time than the other test cases. Let me quickly open our load test cases. So here if you see we have three load test cases. As part of our the previous configuration we did this. So we are going to provide the weight for every test cases. In the task decorator, you can add the weight easily here. For example, you are giving the weight for this test case is 6, and for this is 3, and for this test case you are giving weight of 3. Maybe you are giving weight of 1. So now, so the hello world will be the more weight, and get time details, that is the second priority, and task 1, like the get customer detail is task be given the weight of 1. So let's quickly execute and then see how this is executing, because we given this weight. So which means this hello world has to be executed longer time, and this will be the second priority, and this will be the third priority based on our weight. Let's execute this. Now if you see here, so our hello world will be invoked many times because we given that as a weight, more weight to that. Okay, so our execution completed right now. So let's open our report and then see how this weight has been distributed. Yeah, so when you see here, this is how the execution happened. The hello world given most preference because we added the weight of 6, and this executed 60 percentage, and the get time details we given the weight of 3, that is the 30 percentage of execution, and get customer details 10 percentage. So through this you have a control over it, and then you can execute how many, what are all the test cases needs to be executed longer time, and which test cases needs to execute at less time. So those things you can control from here. So as a third steps, we are going to see the tags, especially when you group the test cases together. For example, if you have some 15 test cases, and 5 test cases you need to run as part of the smoke testing, and the remaining 10 test cases as part of the regression. You can group together what are all the test cases comes under the regression and what are all the test cases comes under the smoke testing. So those kind of the groupings we can do using the tags. Let's see how we can do the tags as part of the load testing. So in our test case, you can just add tag, the decorator, and then the name of it. So I added here tag and then regression and tag and then smoke. So this test case is part of the smoke testing and this test case is part of regression. Similarly, for the third test case, this is part of smoke and regression. So we need to run this test case for smoke as well as regression. The other test cases only for smoke or regression testing. Let's see how to execute this one right now. So this is the step to execute the smoke test case. So we have a smoke test case here, the test case 2 that is getting the time. So I'm saying that run only the smoke test cases as part of here. So this is running right now. If you see here, so we have the get time details as well as the get customer details. These two test cases we have comes under the smoke. So those two test cases are running wrong because we given the tags with the smoke test cases. It's completed right now. Let's see and view our reports, HTML report. Yeah, in the report if you see it's running only these two test cases. So those are all under the tag smoke. So those two test cases executed. Now let's run only the regression test cases. So instead of smoke I'm giving regression. Now this has to execute only the regression test cases. So if you see here we have this regression hello world and this test case also part of the regression. So these two are running right now, get customer details as well as the hello world. Yeah, now it's executed. So which executed both test cases because these two test cases are comes under the regression. Similarly, so in case you need to execute both regression and smoke, you can provide like this tags smoke comma regression. And the next part is excluding the tags. So in case like there is a option you can exclude the tags, you can put hyphen hyphen exclude and then hyphen tags and smoke. So when you exclude the tags, which means those test cases alone will not run. Suppose you are saying exclude smoke, which means except smoke test case all other test case will execute. And if you just to provide exclude tags alone, then which means it will exclude the tags completely and execute all the test cases. So that is the purpose of the exclude. Let me execute with this exclude the smoke. So I'm given here hyphen hyphen exclude tags and smoke. So this has to execute the regression test cases. So if you see here the smoke is there as part of test case 3 and yeah, here test case 2. But right now we said like exclude the smoke test cases. This is executing only the regression case, which is test case 1. It's executing the hello world. Yeah, it's executed only the hello world test cases because it's excluded the smoke test tag here. Next we are going to see how do we validate the response, because when we fire the request we'll be getting the response, maybe the response code as 200 or the response text is success. We are going to see how do we validate those response. Let me show how we can implement that code. So if we come here for this test cases we added the response. So we need to define load test cases as a method, and then inside this keyword, so you need to declare our test cases. For example, I'm using the get customer details here, and the catch response true. We need to catch the response. So the response available inside this variable, response variable, and then you can do a try catch and then just to do a validation, test it. So if the response dot text not equal to success, which means we are good, we are pass, or else we will be thinking that there is some failure, some response error. So this is how we need to handle that error. You have the code also, response.code. You can check whether it's a 200 or if it's not 200, what is the exception you need to throw as part of your test cases. So this is the method we can define, and how do we validate the response code. As part of our load test cases, we can validate our response code as well. Thank you so much for watching. All this description as well as the code, source code is available as part of the description. Also, I put it in the web page as well. So you can take a look and then design your load test cases according to that. Also, in our next video, we are going to see how do we perform the load test cases for one of the machine learning API that we built already. I hope you enjoy this video. Please subscribe and share for more videos.